In this episode of our Young Innovators series, we'll speak with Carolina Manakit, who founded the 93% Club at the University of York, which is a student-led society dedicated to improving educational outcomes for students from state schools in York. And she is studying philosophy and also serves as the head of non-law at the York Law Society. So thank you, Caroline, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So just to give our viewers a little background about yourself, could you just, give yourself an introduction?
Yeah, so like you said, you wonderfully introduced. Yeah, so my name is Caroline. I am going into my second year this September, and I'm studying philosophy over at the University of York. So I've just founded the 93% Club. So I've launched the York branch at the University of York, and I'm also on the York Law Society committee as the head of non-law. So I lead the subcommittee, and yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
Fantastic. So you're studying philosophy, but you've also had a variety of legal work experience, such as an Insight Day at Herbert Smith Freehills, and you serve on your Law Society committee, as you've said. So what sparked your interest in law, and do you think philosophy is a degree which sets you up well for a career in law?
Yeah, so I think when I first started my A levels, so I did English Lit, history, and I did politics. So I never studied law before, but I always had an interest. So my teachers were like, "Oh, you're very like argumentative, like you love sort of dissecting arguments and sort of presenting them in a very articulate way. Have you ever thought about, a career in law?" So I think that was like a couple of years ago, just after the first couple of months into my A levels. And so I just sort of to researched around like what is actually law, what career actually is this. And I think, because I did essay based subjects and they sort of revolve around, articulating arguments and stuff like that, and just analyzing those arguments, I thought, this is an interest of mine. Like I actually want to explore this further. And I always knew about, you don't have to do a law degree to become a solicitor or a barrister. There is, the GDL route, so the route to convert. So I always had that in the back of my mind. But because I never really was exposed to learning law as an academic subject, I just thought I'll just choose an element with my studies that I'm currently studying right now, my A levels, that I could pursue at university, and then I could do the law route. So I did politics A level, and part of that was there was a little section in it called political philosophy, and that was always an interest of mine. That was like my favourite part of A levels. So I just thought, I'd seek that part, and yeah, so got a place to study philosophy at York. And yeah, to answer like the second part of your question, I do think, when people do become solicitors or barristers or seek a career in the legal route, you do have non-law students. It's 50-50 for firms, and most of the time you'll see a lot of English lit students, or you'll see a lot of history students, politics students. You don't really hear and see a lot from students who are studying philosophy. But I think because I'm biased, I think because I'm studying a philosophy degree, I think philosophy does set you up really nicely if you do want to seek a legal career. It's a bit of everything. I think it encompasses like history, it encompasses politics, it's history of thought. You're looking at all of these key philosophical arguments that's never been answered fully or correctly, but you're sort of looking and analyzing arguments from different philosophers, and I think that sets you up really nicely if you do want to go into law. So yeah.
Yeah, and I don't study philosophy at university, but I studied it in school. And there's one thing that I found really useful from it, which is Watson-Glaser tests.
Yeah.
You learn how to structure arguments, about logic and all these things. So they really help you for Watson-Glaser. So I'm thankful that I managed to do that. I'm sure.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, no, yeah, it does set you up really, really nice. And I do agree. There's, so many parts of philosophy. Like you said, there's like logic. There's also the more political philosophy, the legal philosophy. So yeah, philosophy is, I'd argue is probably one of the subjects out there that sets you up really nicely.
Fantastic. Well, just to bring it to the 93% Club, just for anybody who doesn't know what this society is, could you just explain what the society's aims are, what activities it engages in, and just a general overview of the 93% Club?
Yes, so the 93% Club stands for the fact that 93% of students across the UK are state school students and are state schools. And the 93% Club, it is a social mobility, society. So the original one was set up in 2016 over at the University of Bristol, and our founding president, Sophie Pender, who's now a trainee solicitor at Herbert Smith Freehills. So she went to, a state comprehensive school, a bit like myself. And, when she went to university at Bristol, in this case, she sort of felt this huge culture shock. There was this huge disparity between students who come from state schools and students who are privately educated, and it was this idea of that um, these students, these undergraduates who are come from a private school background, they knew things about how to network, personal branding, this, how I would describe it, is a bit like soft skills, how to use LinkedIn, making that first impression. And I think the statistics are awful when it comes to students who come from state schools, and the fact that we don't really have that much prep prior to university. So when we do get dropped off at university, never mind a Russell Group university, you sort of feel a little bit alien. So that was the reason why the 93% Club was sort of set up. It was sort of like that sense of community that students who come from state schools, to be able to learn skills into how to network, personal branding, just to get that kickstart and just leveling up that playing field. And yeah, so that's that in a nutshell. That's what the 93% Club is.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about you've got the academics,
Yeah.
which obviously people who went to state schools probably aren't as developed in those fields as somebody who went to a private school. But you've also got the soft skills, the networking, how to build those relationships with people, in law firms and at university. So I think it's great that you're working on that and you're supporting students, in those areas. So there are 93% clubs at a variety of universities all across the United Kingdom, in England, Scotland, and all around. So how did you find out about this society originally, and why did you decide to found one at your university?
Okay, so I actually met Sophie Pender over at the Insight Day that I did at Smith Freehills. So I was part of the Social Mobility Aspiring Solicitors program, and they did basically do like a little collaboration with Smith Freehills about like the legal career, commercial law, and all of that. So that was the very first Insight Day that I actually attended, and that was in September. So that was a couple of weeks before I actually started uni. So it's the first time of me like going to London on my own, walking up to this massive like fancy building, and they basically did a talk about social mobility and how law firms are actually finding it really difficult to attract students who come from socially mobile backgrounds. And that's when she did the talk, and she said like, look, I'm now a solicitor. I've founded this 93% Club, and I just thought like, I thought in principle like that is such a good idea. Like I love how there's somebody out there who's trying to like bridge that gap. But because I didn't start university prior to that, I really didn't know what I was expecting to go into. So I'm from like a small town in Durham, and so York is not that far away from me. So I just thought like, no way, like York can't be like that. There's got to be somebody in the same boat as me. But actually going to university and having been the only person in my friendship group actually that actually went to university, so none of my friends actually go to uni. I looked back on the Insight Day and the talk and everything, and I was just like, yeah, this is a huge, like, this is a problem. Like, I actually can't believe it. And, because I wanted to go into law, I actually found it really difficult to like learn things about like what is the application process, like, what is the Watson-Glaser test, how do you do it, what's the score, what's the threshold to pass and everything. And, I didn't know how to network. I didn't really have anybody that I could go to. And I was just sort of looking back at it in my second term, and I was just like, I can't be the only one that's feeling like this. And I was in my first year as well, so I was just sort of like, I don't want to go into second and third year feeling like this and feeling so alone. Like I actually do want to, have a kickstart and everything. And because I had her like contact details and I connected with her on LinkedIn, I just sort of sent her a message and was like, this is a huge problem at York. I don't know why there isn't something so similar here. And yeah, and so that message kind of became a phone call, and the phone call progressed to an offer to set one up at York. So now here we are. So yeah, so just launched at York.
Yeah, so obviously you heard this speech, or you spoke with the original founder of 93% Club, and you got help to set up your own society at York. But do presidents at the different universities work collaboratively or independently on the projects of 93% Club?
Yeah, it's kind of like a little bit of a mix. So like when we do get like I guess a high profile speaker, if that makes sense, we do sort of share our contacts that we have. So you know, we might get contacted like by each club, if that makes sense. So like I might get contacted by somebody and might think that, oh my goodness, this is such a good opportunity, I really want to share this out with the other clubs. So you know, we do work really collaboratively, and we're sort of open to sharing our contacts and what we have. So in this case, it might be like a York alumni who's really well renowned in his career or her career, whatever. And yeah, so we will do collaborative events, but then we'll also, you know, work independently on the side. So like how I describe is a bit like a mixture, if that makes sense. So each sort of club really listens and really tailors it towards their members. So for York in this case, we do have a lot of law students. So this year there will be sort of help and support in terms of like applications to become a solicitor, whether that's vacation schemes and training contracts, whether, you know, to go to the bar and everything. So you know, it's a bit of a mix. We do collaborate, and we also do work a little bit independently just to sort of fit our events to our members. So it's a
Yeah,
mix.
great. Fantastic. And it seems like you provide a lot of value to your members and anybody who engages in your events and programs. But if somebody goes to university which doesn't have a 93% club, have you got any advice on, you know, how they can set one up, who they can contact, you know, those sorts of details?
So I mean, yeah, the 93% club, it's expanded so much, but I feel like if you are at a university or a Russell Group university and you know you're in the same position, you're just like, what? Like how, why is this not a thing at my uni? I definitely try and get in touch with the original founding president, Sophie Pender, um, and just, you know, see if you could set one up, and yeah, and just making sure that, you know, you're doing it for the right reasons and you are really passionate about social mobility, because it's not an easy thing, I think, because being the first one, and a lot of universities are the first sort of founding committee, it is quite difficult setting it up. But you know, just making sure that you're really passionate about social mobility and you're able to portray that, I don't see why not.
Fantastic. Well, do you think, just as a final question, do you think that law firms are doing well or going in the right direction in terms of social mobility and, you know, improving access?
Yeah, I think, you know, law is such, you know, it's definitely a career that definitely needs a lot of work on in terms of like like diversity and inclusion, and just making sure that they're attracting students from socially mobile backgrounds. But I think where the problem is that a lot of these students, especially students who come from state school students, whether that be, you know, somebody who's been on free school meals or first generation, they're not really exposed to that knowledge or the pathway to in law specifically. So I think, you know, in the past with the whole COVID thing, I think it really has exposed, you know, what law firms should be doing. And I think with the whole A-level U-turn, and I think that point significantly was sort of a huge turning point to sort of reflecting how law firms are acting and stuff like that. But you know, I've seen that a lot of law firms are, you know, they're scrapping their A-level requirements, so they're not seeing that as, you know, an indicative piece of talent. You know, they're looking at the whole person, the whole application, which I think is probably the best way to do it. So I think, you know, there is positive change, but I think, you know, like it goes for every sort of career sector that's sort of not really diverse, I think there could be more. But I think, you know, we are sort of leading in the right direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
But it's
definitely.
all to do with these initiatives like the 93% club and everything like that, that hopefully exposes, you know, these students to these careers and stuff.
Yeah, great. And I think that's a good point about how, you know, the A-level, you know, scandal in England and then the SQA scandal in Scotland has really changed how law firms look towards, you know, grades from school. And it's great that they're starting to look more at, you know, university grades and society experience and those sorts of things, because that's how, you know, you can improve social mobility and help people who maybe didn't go to, you know, the best schools, you know, originally, get into the law and pursue a career
Yeah.
in law, yes, yeah. And just finally, if anybody's interested in contacting you or learning more about the 93% Club, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you'll find the 92% Club York on our social media pages. So we've got our Instagram page is the 92% Club York, and on Facebook and LinkedIn. So literally pop a message, send a DM over, or, you know, find us on LinkedIn. My inbox is always open, so happy to help where I can and answer any questions. So yeah, just making sure that you're sort of keeping in touch with our social media pages is where you can contact us.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining me. You've been a fantastic guest, and I've
Thank
really
you.
fantastic. Hopefully, I'll speak to you soon, and I'll see you later.
Bye, thanks for having me.